Have you ever thought about a United States of Africa? Have you ever thought about an African continent where there are no boundaries? But even before that, individual African countries where we have leaders that create good internal security in all the countries and have the bigger countries who can help the smaller countries fortify security within their own boundaries. In the meantime, even before we get there, let's enjoy this musical segue into our topic today.
Down the way where the nights are gay and the sun shines gaily on the mountain top, I took a trip on a sailing ship, but when I reached Jamaica, I made a stop. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way, won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is spinning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. Sounds of laughter everywhere, and the dancing girls swing to and fro. I must declare my heart is there, though I've been from Maine to Mexico. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way, won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is spinning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town.
Hello, everybody. Once again, this is Fred Wankwo coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on ALEN TV. As usual, I want to say to you good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, depending on where you are around the world. I'm very excited to say that this is the 98th episode of Bold Talk on ALEN TV. And what better time to do this than to bring in African youth in the demographic group of 22 years old to 45 years old, maybe 5 or 6 of them, bring them into our studio for that 100th episode to talk about growth in Africa, what the young people are thinking about. What the young Africans in America are thinking about is completely parallel and in the same sync with what African youth back home are thinking. On that topic, it's important to note that the obedient movement was just more than a movement in Nigeria. Listen to what this young lady is saying.
Hi everyone, my name is Miren Awa, a proud Cameroonian, a proud African, and a proud obedient. I'm one of the Cameroonians, Africans that so much loved and supported the obedient movement. I didn't just join the obedient movement because I wanted to chase cloud or because it's just a trend. I started making videos of the obedient movement even before it started trending. Because even if Peter Obi doesn't win in court, even if he doesn't become the president right now, he has done so much for me as an individual. The obedient movement has inspired me so much. So let me share with you some of the things that this obedient movement have done to me as an African child, as an African daughter who is tired of this whole African bad government and drama. So here, I'm going to be reading it out, so I just say it exactly the way I wrote it. Obedient movement has given me hope that a new Africa is possible. Obedient movement gave me hope that the youth can still be the leaders of tomorrow. Obedient movement gave me hope that our children and our children's future can still be bright in Africa. Obedient movement gave me hope that tribalism can still be brought to an end in Africa. Obedient movement gave me hope that the end of corruption is still possible in Africa. Obedient movement gave me hope that God-fearing men can still be leaders in Africa. Obedient movement gave me hope that democracy is still possible in Africa. Obedient movement gave me hope that the voices of the masses can still be heard in Africa. That is what.
And that's why 100th episode, the title is not quite set yet, but it's going to be in line with the obedient movement and its impact on the African continent, especially the African youth. And I dug into my archives, and you're going to see that today's show combines what I'm wearing today and what I was wearing sometime about 12 months ago when I addressed the possibility of building the United States of Africa, where even if we are not one country, as you have in the United States of America, but the different countries build a structure that creates collaboration and open up the boundaries across the continent so that we can work together in a way that we mutually benefit. And when we do that, we're going to find that we become a stronger continent and more able to deal with people who have been exploiting us, whether it's the internal exploitation by the powers that be or foreign exploitation. In the meantime, I'm going to pay some bills, show you some of my sponsors, and on the other side, I'm going to bring in the episode I brought out from the archives that ties into what we're trying to do today. Kick back, relax. We got a special one for you today.
Down the way where the nights are gay and the sun shines gaily on the mountain top, I took a trip on a sailing ship, but when I reached Jamaica, I made a stop. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way, won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is spinning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town.
Now that the bills are paid, let's get into business. With the magic of technology and editing, the rest of the episode is going to be merging an episode we had from about 12 months ago, where we talked about the United States of Africa. And you're going to hear that you're going to see that we talked about the agitations going on across Africa. What I'm wearing there will be different, so don't be shocked when it shows up. The tone is much different, but just listen to the message. I'm not here to criticize the agitating. I'm only here to say that while the agitations are justified, where the agitations lead us may not be the best option for Africa. Africa today and for many decades has been dealing with what I call the recolonization of Africa. The shame is that Africa is not being recolonized by Europeans or by Chinese or by Russians. Africa is actually being recolonized by African leaders. When the Europeans came and colonized us, they wanted to exploit our resources. Today, the exploitation of our resources is not necessarily done by Europeans and foreigners. They are playing a role in it, but it's done by our elite. Much of this agitation that is going on, the beneficiaries are going to be the elite of Africa. The ones who will lose the most are going to be the youth of Africa, because the African youth are getting educated, they're coming out in mass numbers with degrees, but there are no jobs for them. When intelligent people don't have jobs, their brains, which is very active, become warehouses and workshops for the devil. That's why you're going to continue to have these kidnappings and these killings and these crimes going on, because the youth, one, are angry, the youth are jobless, and the youth are taking out their anger on everything they see. But that's not the right way to go, because these youth are very intelligent. We need to put the youth in a position where they can use their intelligence to take Africa to the next generation. Africa is not going to get to the next plateau with Africa splitting into different splinter groups. We want Biafra, we want Oduduwa. In South Africa, the whites have gone out to apply that they want to have their own country. In Mozambique, you have people trying to split up. In Somalia, they're splitting up. In Cameroon, they're splitting up. When you split up all these things, you go from 55 countries to maybe 100 countries. Where are the resources you're going to use to run 100 countries? It's time for us to start thinking boldly and thinking about the United States of Africa. Biafra cannot fight the United States. The Oduduwa state cannot fight Britain. The splinter countries that you form out of Somalia are not going to be able to fight Russia. The splinter groups in Cameroon are not going to be able to fight China. All those countries that you're trying to fight are fighting us, even if they are not called that, but they're the united peoples of a large entity. When you have a large entity, you can build a large army. It comes with its problems. Managing the entity could be a problem, but if they're managing it, why can't we manage it? When you have a large entity, you can build a united economy that serves the people better. You can build a political system that can take care of the little units much better than the tiny country that cannot take care of its tiny population. A United States of Africa puts us in a mode where we start worrying about Fulanis and Igbos and Hausas and Yorubas and Tuis and Ewes and people from Manfe and people from Bamenda across the continent. We need to start seeing ourselves as one people. United, we can conquer. Divided, we can achieve nothing. I know that it's not what the agitation-minded people want to hear. I understand that. Believe me, in my own frustration, I really want Biafra. Because for so many years, we've been with Nigeria and Nigeria hasn't offered us anything. But I also know that I'm old enough to understand that as a very young person, when Nigeria had a semblance of a united country, a lot more things worked for Igbos, for Yorubas, for Hausas, for Fulanis, for Edos, for Efiks, and everybody. Let's stop being brainwashed by the people who are going to take our resources and benefit the most from it. Let's start building a continent where our youth will have limitless space to explore their potentials. I don't know about you, but almost every time when I'm in Nigeria, I find myself in a computer village in Lagos or Abuja or Enugu or Port Harcourt. And what our young people are doing in those computer villages will flabbergast you. And then when you start taking count of the background of these young people that are doing incredible things at the computer villages, you find that many of them barely finished high school. Not because they are not smart, but because they were too hungry to focus in high school, let alone university. And they come to somebody's stall who has a stall at the computer village. They come there every day like if they are being paid, they are not being paid. They run errands for the guy who is doing it. And in 6 months, they've learned enough to go and start their own little thing. And they're fixing things and building things that engineers with bachelor's degrees who are comfortable cannot do those things. Let's build a continent that can unleash our youth. Let's start thinking youth in everything we do. And to the youth, I'm saying this to you. Elections are coming up in Nigeria soon. Elections are coming up in Ghana soon, and many countries in Africa. What are you going to do about it? Sometime in the 90s, Chukwuemeka Ojukwu visited Chicago and he spoke. It was during the Abacha administration in Nigeria, and I attended that event. I don't think I remember much of what he said, but I remember one thing. Because somebody asked him, all these people are getting old, including you. When are you guys going to step down so that the young people can take over? And he looked the guy straight in the face. And he told him, you should be ashamed of yourself. I like your question. I like your spirit. But if you're waiting for people to step down from power, you are never going to get power. You have to wrestle power from them. And I don't say wrestle power by fighting. I don't say wrestle power by killing. I don't say wrestle power by force. I'm saying the youth of Africa need to organize themselves. The youth of Africa need to stop being brainwashed by wealthy Africans and paid off by wealthy Africans and given jobs to shut them up by wealthy Africans. The youth of Africa need to go and organize well enough to come to the elections. For God's sake, you are 60 to 70% of the African population. And of the 30% left, 15% of them are too old to vote. They don't care. They are not going to the polls. So it is your votes that's putting senile people in office. It is your votes that is putting 65 and 70 and 75 and 80-year-old people in office. They have nothing to offer you. No, I'm not undermining our older generation. They've paid their dues. They've done their time. They've done the best they can. It's time for them to become elder statesmen. It's time for our younger people to take over power. It's time for our younger people to become managing directors of banks, while our 80-year-old experienced retired bank directors advise them on how things are done. It's time for our younger people to become the majority of the ministers in the cabinets. It's time for our younger people to become the president, while they have an elder statesman that they go to when they need advice to get advice from him. Africa belongs to the youth. I am 64 years old. I have not participated in power at every level. That's my fault. Now that I feel that I can contribute, I don't need to go to be president of Nigeria. I don't need to go to be the minister of this and that in Nigeria. I can advise the minister of this and that in Nigeria. If I have something to contribute to Africa, I could contribute from behind the scenes. My face doesn't have to show up on the headlines for me to contribute. But Africa's youth, Ghana's youth, Cameroon's youth, Kenya's youth, Uganda's youth, Mozambique's youth, South Africa's youth, Nigeria's youth, I'm appealing to you. I'm saying to you, put the guns down. Stop fighting. If you're 35 years old and you're 40 years old and you're 50 years old and you're pouting that you're deprived, then it's your fault. I understand that the opportunities have not been there for you. I understand that the doors have not been opened for you. But stop pouting. Organize. When you organize, you're going to take this. Nobody is going to give it to you. I'm begging you to take it from them. And should I say, take it from us? I'm ashamed to say that my generation has failed Africa. But I'm also not happy to see that the youth is sitting around and complaining and pouting instead of organizing to take the bull by the horn. These next elections coming up are great opportunities for you, the youth, to shock the world. You shock the world by not voting for these money bags that are ready to pounce and become presidents in 2023 and 2024 and whenever the elections are going to be in the different African countries. Let me, as usual, conclude on this note. Africa has resources. Europe has stolen our resources. But we should stop complaining about what Europe is doing to us. Europe is happy when we split up into splinter countries. Europe is waiting, believe it or not. They may not show it, but they are waiting for Biafra to become actualized. They are waiting for Oduduwa state to become actualized. They are waiting for the Middle Belt country to become actualized. But they also know that when you actualize those things, it divides you more, it splinters you more, and the more you are divided, the more they come in with their ships and take your resources and go home, build great economies from it, build reserves that attract you to come take loans, and you go borrow money at exorbitant rates that you cannot pay back. And when it comes payback time, they come back in with their ships and ship your resources out without payment because you're happy to give it to them, because when you give them those resources free, they get off your neck and they stop asking you to pay what they claim you owe them, when it's actually your own resources that they are using to give you money that they call loans. This has to stop. We can't keep living this way. And we can't keep blaming Europe. And we can't keep blaming China. And we can't keep blaming Russia. It's time to look in the mirror. When we collectively look in the mirror, Africa, we're going to find that our problems are staring at us. We are our problems. Europe is not our problems. In my lifetime, I've never seen Europeans come to Africa with guns to take our resources. Instead, I've seen our leaders welcome Europeans and their ships and their sailors who come in and load up their ships. And on their way out, we ask them, are you sure you don't have room to take more? And they say, no, this is enough for now. We'll be back when we need some more. And we're happy to shake their hands and say bye. Have a nice trip back. This has to stop. My heart bleeds for Africa, and not because of what they are doing to us. My heart bleeds because of what we're doing to ourselves. In the meantime, thank you very much. I appreciate you watching, and we'll be back with more from Bold Talk on ALEN TV.
Down the way where the nights are gay and the sun shines gaily on the mountain top, I took a trip on a sailing ship, but when I reached Jamaica, I made a stop. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way, won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is spinning around. I had to leave a little girl